Oh, yeah. Oh, congratulations to you on that. I almost forgot to ask you about it because you were very hands-on on the campaign.
Definitely.
So it went the way you expected?
Definitely. I mean, we have a new flag bearer, and it went definitely according to what we expected.
That wasn't what you were expecting, a 75% to 80% win. You got 61.
A win.
It didn't matter because your team had said it, that you were sure you're going to win about 75% or 80% of the votes.
61% is a significant number.
Okay.
If you look at the fact that the competition was very, if you like, keenly contested. And it's an internal election, so people would express their views. But immediately that election is over, what tends to happen is that we close ranks.
Okay.
And then we fought together to prosecute the agenda come 2024.
Well, you have a lot of work to do before 2024, so all the best to you and your team.
Thank you.
But Lawyer Kwame Jantwa also joins us this morning. He's the chairman for the Political Affairs Committee for the CPP. Good morning.
Morning. How are you doing?
Not bad at all. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
I saw you were smiling when I was asking Eric about the 75% as against 61%. So you're not saying anything about it, eh?
I'm not saying anything about it. Just they touted 80%, touted 75%. And for me, that was to have control of the party. Because when you compare what President Akufo-Addo got, from the word go, he had total control. 61% doesn't give you total control. And unfortunately, others will be pissing in when Vice President Bawumia is trying to unify the party. And whether he can unify the party is a very big question.
You're not sure he can?
Well, let's see.
Let's see. Time will tell. But also in the studios this morning is the Deputy Director for NDC Special Duties, Broja Jemfi. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you doing as well?
I'm great. I'm great. This morning, the NDC's morning.
Yeah.
The passing of the late Madam Sharia Ite.
Yeah.
And so we are holding an event at the Cathedral of the Most Holy Trinity, High Street.
Okay.
We are having a requiem mass and a funeral service for her. And Sunday will be the Thanksgiving service. Okay. So after today's event, there will not be any funeral. There will only be a Thanksgiving service on Sunday, and that will be at the Royal House Chapel on Sunday.
Oh.
So from this program, I'll be joining my colleagues for the funeral service this morning.
May she continue to rest in perfect peace.
Amen.
We pray for her soul. But let's go into our first discussion for this morning. And the Ministry of Finance has approved a disbursement of over 4 million Ghana cedis to settle the debt of the Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital Renal Unit Outpatient Department. And this is according to the Health Minister, Mr. Kweku Agyemang-Manu, who was in Parliament yesterday to respond to questions concerning the Buhaha with patients, suffering from kidney failure and Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital's closure of the renal unit since May. On Monday, it was officially opened to patients to come in for their dialysis treatment, but that also came with a lot of issues concerning even the cost of treatment per patient, moving from 380 Ghana cedis to over 700 Ghana cedis. The patients complained bitterly about that as well. And so there's a lot to discuss on this matter. Let's listen to the minister first of all, and then we'll speak to a patient who is also a reporter here with Media General, currently undergoing dialysis, but he's willing to speak to us on that matter. Take a look.
News now is that the Minister for Finance has just approved the disbursement of this 4 million to support our patients in Korle-Bu. Way forward. To forestall the recurrence of this unfortunate situation, the Ministry, in collaboration with Korle-Bu and the Minister of Finance, is considering one of the following options: the possible inclusion of dialysis on the National Health Insurance Benefit Package, the granting of subsidies based on proposal received from Korle-Bu, and the possible review of the tariffs to ensure sustainability of the services. A local team has been trained to provide these services, transplantation services, at reduced cost, and have already undertaken the first few kidney transplantations successfully in country by our Ghanaian doctors. Mr. Speaker, I believe this is the beginning of the government's vision of making Ghana a hub for medical.
And so that is the updates. But between May when the renal unit department was closed up until 6th of November. We're told that 19 patients unfortunately lost their lives. And the Renal Patients Association had described Korle-Bu Teaching Hospital's refusal to open the center a death sentence. In fact, beyond that, they've also decried the increment in price as well. Korle-Bu eventually reversed to the old price. But let's go to Thomas Khan. He is a reporter here with Media General, but he's also a renal patient. Hello, Thomas. Good morning to you. Hi, Thomas. Can you hear us? Okay, we're going to try and reconnect with him via Zoom. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know if you're muted or unmuted. Thomas, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
but I can hear you now.
Good morning to you. How are you
Thanks
doing?
for having me. Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, by grace.
I know that at the moment you are even undergoing dialysis treatment, and so I'm grateful that you still agreed to speak to us on this. But yesterday, you heard from the Minister of Health, and he says that finally there's some approval from the Finance Ministry to release that 4 million Ghana cedis to settle, the debt that was owed. But even beyond that, you're one of the people who was also not happy about the increments from 380 to over 700 Ghana cedis. What do you make of his statement yesterday, and do you think it addresses the issues that the Renal Patients Association had decried?
Well, I think that it was good news hearing that at long last the 4 million debt is going to be paid, and that's it's as a first step in all the things that we were demanding. But again, it doesn't end there. There are other issues that I was expecting the minister to talk about or to say, which I didn't hear.
Like what?
Bella, after clearing the 4 million debts, there are other issues to be talked about. Because if you pay the 4 million and we have to go back to square one, it's almost like doing nothing at all. The consumables that is used for dialysis are all imported. So if nothing is done about how those consumables will get into the country, and the importation also comes with taxes. Apart from the taxes, the import charges that they charge at the port, that is what puts the cost of dialysis at that high price. And it is about time the Ministry of Health or government does something about it. Until that's all those taxes are scrapped off, we'll go back to square one. And what we're talking about, that brought about the 4 million deaths, will reoccur again. And that is why we keep asking that government, please do something about the tax waivers that we've been talking about.
Well,
because mind you, Bella, if not for the other private facilities providing dialysis service, I'm sure we would have reported more deaths than what we know about.
But you see, if you listen to what the minister said yesterday, he says that the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Finance, and even, for example, Korle-Bu, they were having conversations about, granting subsidies based on proposals from Korle-Bu, and also looking at a possible review of tariffs to ensure sustainability of the service. Is that not at least close to what you're asking for, that maybe that could affect the price or the cost of dialysis treatment in the country, and then the pressure will be taken off you as a patient?
Yeah, well, Bella, what I do know is that talking about a price review or government, parliament asking the ministry or whichever agency is responsible to review the price. What we do know or what we've heard is that Korle-Bu was asking government or parliament to try and okay the proposal, that is the 700 and something that they were talking about. So that tells you that until we get the tax waivers, we'll go back, Korle-Bu coming back, will come back to say that you need to pay the 760 that they were talking about, all because there are no tax waivers on the consumables.
Okay.
So that is where our worry is. Because already the 380, a lot cannot pay. And that is why people are dying. So if they are going to 760 just to keep the place running, then it's still a problem. I don't know if you get the mathematics that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You the 760 just to get the place running. Then the other side of the coin is that people cannot pay. So the whole thing is just problematic. And that is why we keep talking and I'm pleading with government to do something about it.
How much
But
do you...
as I tell you, this one, here at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, we pay 350.
Okay,
And
350.
And yes, here at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, and then other facilities around the country are also charging around the same price. But if there were tax waivers on the consumables, we would have had to pay lesser than that.
Yeah.
As I speak to you now, most of the machines are broken down. You know, the conversation is really broad. I got to the hospital before 3:30 a.m. All because the machines here are not enough, and the patients here are many. So it means that you have to sacrifice your sleep just to come and queue to have your things. And the whole process takes 4 hours. The dialysis process takes 4 hours. So imagine if you come and in the queue, somebody comes before you. You wait 4 hours, and then you also come on the machine for 4 hours. So that is 8 hours. So it's not easy.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that I was asking. We were hoping to hear the minister talk about. What is the policy direction to replace the machines, or how to even purchase the machines, or even more machines?
How many
to come up?
How many machines were currently, in operation at the hospital that you're in? That's the Cape Coast, hospital?
Yes.
How many machines were working? How many are working now?
At the moment, I would say 4.
4.
4.5. It was 5 because even one out of the 5 is not functioning properly. Somebody has to be by that machine to be pressing, just to make sure it functions. So it's still a problem.
And in a day, how many patients?
Sorry, come again.
In a day, how many patients will normally queue just to have access to these machines?
About 50 patients. And then if you can imagine, just 50 patients sharing about 4 or 5 machines. You know, it's a problem.
All right.
It's a problem.
Thomas, thank you so much for speaking to us. I know you're undergoing treatment, and so we'll leave you to it, but we do hope that whatever the minister has said, they will focus on ensuring that it actually happens. But thank you very much. Eric.
Yes, but Bella, before I go, I would plead with your panelists over there that please, they should join hands and then, add their voice for government to hear us. This conversation should be a political matter. When it comes to health, it doesn't know whether you're NPP or NDC. To tell you the truth, there are some so-called big men. We have government appointees and former government appointees who also go for dialysis. But unfortunately, they are not coming out publicly for people to know. And sometimes when we are having conversations amongst ourselves as patients, we go like, are these people not coming out because they have the means or they have the money to pay? Because we were expecting that some of these people will come out to even lead the fight for the prices of dialysis to go down. Because if we have the cost scrapped off, a lot more, those people who are in the villages and other places who are not coming to dialysis will have the means to come to dialysis. Because, brother, as I speak to you, there are more people who are supposed to come to the hospital today. But because they don't have the money, they're not coming. Sometimes they come and their condition is very deteriorated, all because they didn't have money to even keep the dialysis for 2 times a week or 3 times a week. And that is the prescribed way. If you don't do it, you tolerate your condition.
All right.
So please,
Thank you so much for speaking to us this morning, Thomas. But Eric, so the PRO for Korle-Bu, at the time when, you know, they had shut down the renal units department, he came out and said that the reason they had to make that decision and also increase the cost was because of high cost of taxes and contractual issues with the supplier. You're listening to a patient now who's telling you that he listened to the minister, but he wasn't convinced because he was hoping that something would be said about the taxes to make life easier for them. Were you satisfied with the minister or his presentation in Parliament?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, when these things happen, who best to interview than somebody who's actually feeling the effects of undergoing dialysis treatment. And for me, I think that when these things happen, what you do is that you find ways of stemming the tide and then finding solutions, long-term solutions to that. Now, the very first issue was the debt that was actually owed this supplier, which had to be taken up by government and to an extension, the Ministry of Finance, to make sure that at least the facility will be up and running so that people will not lose lives unnecessarily. Because even if you lose one life, that cannot be justified. These are things that, for me, like the patient himself said, these are not political matters. I mean, everybody can find themselves in this kind of border. So we have to be very careful, I mean, when we comment about these things. So when you deal with the debt issue, I'm happy that we're also having conversation around the policy conversation in terms of, do you give tax waivers for these consumables to come in? And it makes sense. I mean, it's a very logical conversation to have. And I believe that these are things that, I mean, as we speak, I'm sure it should go to Parliament. And Parliament should act in earnest so that at least we would get some kind of relief. And then the cost of the dialysis treatment will come down. There's also a conversation as to if we can actually activate the national health insurance so that it will cover the cost of dialysis treatment. And for me, I think that is one of the things that we need to look into and maybe find ways of making sure that there are inbuilt revenue generation mechanisms so that it could be able to, I mean, cover the cost of the treatment so that we are not losing lives and people will have a certain quality of life. Because health, for me, is everything. Then you move on from that conversation to the bigger picture, how you find more facilities and then bring in more equipment so that you sort of democratize the treatment. You know, that people don't have to travel long distances or, I mean, stay in the queue for long hours just because the number of machines are actually a certain minimum, right? And then, so once you're having these conversations surrounding government and other stakeholders, when it comes to these things, then you probably would want the wider public to also take a keen interest and support so that we have maybe corporate entities or even as a, if you like, a social responsibility initiative by some of the corporate entities so that you can have a lot more of these machines and then the treatment will become a bit more democratized and all that. But should we have gotten here?
Which is what I was going to ask you. 19 deaths?
Yes, exactly. And that is, for me, is an unfortunate aspect of it, that even in the public sector, you have to be a bit more proactive when it comes to these things. I think that a death of, let's say, 4 million does not happen in a day. You know, so sometimes we have to take some of these responsibilities, I mean, seriously, so that we don't get to the point where we're having challenges.
But have we taken this seriously as a government? Has the health ministry taken this seriously? Because there have been agitation since May. No,
I think that, I mean, when the conversation started in terms of the increment in the cost of the treatment, I think that a series of conversations have been had. Now, what for me is interesting is that it looks as if it's Korle-Bu that has a peculiar challenge, even though when it comes to the issues to do with the consumables and all of those things, it should apply to the various facilities. So probably there has to be a certain investigation to understand why maybe Korle-Bu as an entity is facing a particular challenge and it feels that they have to increase the price from the 350 to the 750 that they're talking about. But then like I'm saying, that once these things happen, you need to stem it. First thing is that open the facility so that we don't have any unnecessary...
Open the facility.
Yeah,
but the minister, yes, but the minister even gave a directive that they should open the facility and go back to the 350 or 380 that they were taking. That didn't happen. Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. That so that as we speak from yesterday, the indication is that the reasons why the facility was shut to the outpatient was being resolved, which is the issues to do with the debt payment and all of that. But I'm saying that for starters, you have to fix that particular challenge, and then you find solutions, the long-term solutions to the challenges that we are facing. And then even the patient himself, Thomas, and said something which is very interesting, which is you go beyond the rhetoric and then say that, listen, as a government, government as a whole, right? So for me, I think that even the Committee of Health in Parliament should take this up. And I know that they've been doing some work with that, but then push further in terms of the conversation around the tax waivers, so that we can have these consumables coming tax-free, or even if it's like exempted, then we can have these consumables coming as a measure to stem the increase.
But based on what timelines? Because these patients don't have time.
No, I understand, but that's what I'm saying, that as we speak, the first hurdle has been, if you like, it's been taken care of.
Has it really? Which is the 4 million?
No, which is the 4 million, and also opening the facility so that people can go to Korle-Bu.
But they still can't afford it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But there's been a directive that they shouldn't increase the price, right? Because even for argument purposes, I think that when it comes to the setting of tariffs and all of those things, there has to be an approval from Parliament. You know what I'm saying? So without the politics and trying to, I'm not here to defend anybody, right? Even without the politics and everything, even if Korle-Bu as an entity wants to increase prices, it has to go through a proper process, right? And so on its own cannot really wake up one morning and say they want to do that. So I'm sure that when it gets to the House, it will be dealt with appropriately. But as we speak now, we need to make sure that we don't have the renal unit closed, so that people can have access to it. And for me, that is the most important thing.
Lawyer, is that really the most important thing for you as well? The fact that, of course, it's been open, which was what they were also asking for. But if they cannot afford treatments, then what's really the point?
Good morning to our viewers. Good morning to my fellow panelists. Look, this is something that we can't only look at what is happening today. There's a wider picture that we're not taking care of. And let me start with it's a non-communicable disease, isn't it? HIV is what?
It is.
It's a transferable disease. What have we done where HIV is concerned? There's a policy framework, isn't it? HIV kills, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Kidney problems to kill. The kidney is a filter to the body. It filters all the waste, it filters all these types of things. What are we doing to teach our citizens that there are certain things you don't have to do because of A, B, C, D, E? Is there any policy like that in place? Don't you think the same way we have policies that cover HIV, we should have policies that cover things like the renal unit? We should, because it's a killer. You don't have it, you're supposed to have 3 times a week. You even have it twice a week, you can die.
Yeah.
So you can see how important it is to have a policy. And I would have thought, with this particular situation, government would now say, come on, let's look at how we handle the renal units. Let's make sure how we handle, people handle their health, especially with their kidneys. Nothing like that. We're talking about what has happened, money. Number 2, in terms of Komfo-Anokye, are they facing the same problem?
Well, at the moment, we're told that they're also still taking the 380 Ghana cedis. They're not complaining at all.
Are they facing the same problem?
They may be, but...
They may be, but it's not as serious as. So you asked the question, and I heard about the contract, that it was monopolistic. Just because somebody gives you something free doesn't mean that down the road you will not pay for it. what I understand, and I could be totally out of whack, but this is what I understand, that the contract that was signed with the South African company, they have given the dialysis machines free, but Korle-Bu has to buy all the consumables from them.
Yes.
What's the competition? So if they decide to increase the price of consumables, who are you going to? Because you're tied into a contract. The person who signed this contract should be taking on. The question should be asked. Was it Korle-Bu? Was it the Minister of Health? Was it the Minister of Finance? Who actually authored and signed this contract and agreed to this kind of thing?
Well, the minority says they've been asking for it, for that contract for a month now. They still have not received it.
And why?
No explanation
What
given.
is there to hide? What is there to hide? It's just a contract, isn't it? For consumables. So why don't they want to bring that contract? You know, not unless there's some corruption in there. Number two, I'm not sure how much Komfo-Anokye, the working capital of Komfo-Anokye is for the renal unit. Here they're talking about what, 900,000?
For Korle-Bu, you mean?
Yeah, for Korle-Bu, working capital.
Yeah.
Are we going to delve into that 900,000 to find out, is that really the amount that is required? Or is it more or is it less? Because if it's more and government does find that working capital for them, what happens? They won't be able to sustain themselves because they haven't done the calculation well enough to get the appropriate amount of money to run the renal unit. Tax waivers. This can happen to you or me.
Yeah.
A gentleman
Thomas,
friend, yes, Thomas said there are even some big men who are on dialysis. Can government absorb it? And if government does absorb it, is it only for public hospitals or is it also for private hospitals? The cost of dialysis in the private hospitals, is that the real cost that we are not looking at? Or is it that the private hospitals have put a much higher margin on there? All these things have to be looked at. We've got to look at the critical analysis of having a dialysis center. Because, hey, there's nothing as painful as your old mom on dialysis and then they can't have dialysis and then she dies from no fault of hers or no fault of his. Look, diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney problems can create this particular situation. I have high blood pressure. And if I'm not careful what I eat, it can turn into diabetes. It can turn into me going on dialysis. The training of all of us, starting from the schools, is very important, what we take in. Nowadays they do a lot of this natural
Herbs.
And
tea and all that.
Yes. Do we know what is in those things? And when you look at the ages of the people who are going on dialysis today, it's getting younger and younger and younger. Okay, there are some who are born with that situation that we can do nothing about. But we can prevent it by telling people, look, if you do X, if you do Y, this is what might happen to you. If you do X, if you do Y, it can affect your health. If you do X, if you do... But do we do it? So the Minister of Finance has given 4 million. Is that all?
No, but he did mention that moving forward, they're also looking at ways by which they can also create awareness on this matter. And they say there's 100-bed units that has been invested into by government. And so we commissioned first quarter of next year, and they'll look into transplanting more, as well to solve the problem.
How long ago was this, thing put in place? Was it when they came in 2016? Or was it when they came in 2020? When was this unit that the health minister is talking about, when was it put in place? Has it taken this particular situation for him to come and tell us? Then it would have been great. As he was telling us, he would tell us where it's located, where it is gotten to. Nothing. We come and stand in Parliament, you say these things. When then push comes to shove and we are asking you, where is this unit you're talking about? Nobody can say anything about it. It is important. Look, the health of the individual. Look, the people, the citizens of a country is the most natural resource you have. Because without the people in the country, nothing works. You can't till your land, you can't do farming, you can't extract your raw material, you can't do anything. So the health of the people, very, very important. And as we've seen, this short time that the dialysis center, renal center was shut, how many people have died?
19.
19 precious lives gone. And so it should be taken seriously. And things like this should be seen in manifestos. Although for me, at this material moment, manifestos are not working for Ghana. We should have a national development plan that, looks at all these things. So that as we are progressing, we are bringing in new things. Today we saw Cookie at this, broadcasting. What was she showing us?
Green screen and technology, basically.
She was showing us technology. She was showing us a studio where you don't have all this, a green studio, but on TV, it looks different.
Yeah.
Should we not be discussing these things, especially when it affects the people? I think politics is failing us, unfortunately, especially with some of the important areas, health, education, agriculture, and some of these important areas. It is failing us, and we should, as a people, hold responsible those who are supposed to make sure that these things work. So let's see, 4 million, after the 4 million, what's going to happen? The 900,000, is it going to come? Are they going to actually sit down and see what does the renal unit need in terms of financing and put something in place so that we don't come back here? Because about 21 people dying is serious.
19 actually. But
19.
I mean, the minister says that there's also that conversation to see if, dialysis treatments can be included in the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is also one of the cries of the patient, because they're saying that they cannot afford it. And so if it was included in NHIS, it would be great. However, the NHIS funds has been decapped as well. So do we even have enough funds before having the minister come to Parliament to make such a promise?
I think that this whole issue, I would go with a lawyer. We need to look at it holistically and see how we address the entire problem. It should not be like firefighting, as you realize the minister do in Parliament. Yes, the NHIS is capped. And so even as of now, there are a lot of health centers that are owed by the National Health Insurance Authority. They don't get enough transfers from the Ministry of Finance. And so the fund itself is struggling. So if you go to add on without addressing that fundamental problem, then you are not solving the problem. So it should be looked at, holistically. We have proposed in our 2020 manifesto that we needed to find a more sustainable source of funding for the health insurance. And President Mahama proposed that we should have a portion of our oil revenue channeled to the National Health Insurance Fund, which will help, in terms of adding even more of such diseases. We also propose about having a trust fund for cancer and kidney diseases. Many times people come to your studios, begging for monies to treat cancer, kidney, and many other terminal diseases. And it is not as though such people are beggars. They are in a condition that they need assistance and they cannot afford. So these are some of the things that government must prioritize and come in. You don't leave the problem for as many as 19 persons to die before you go to Parliament. I was very surprised that from May, that's 7 months now, it's as if government was busy doing presidential primaries. And immediately after the presidential primaries, they now see the problem.
I mean, the minister had spoken on this matter and given a directive to Korle-Bu to even reopen.
There's a 4 million debt. How did that come about? It's because of under-recoveries. They are saying that they are not able to charge as they have to. And so there's a funding gap. Even though people go to pay, because they don't pay the full amount, there's a gap there. And that is, piling up into a debt. So if government is preventing them from increasing, which will be expensive for patients, what happens? Government must step in. And you don't wait from May to November. What was happening in between? Was it not possible for government to release the 4 million? We didn't have it in our coffers. Is it some of these terminal diseases must be, the attention must be there. Government must take it seriously. We have said in our 2020 manifesto that we want to declare hypertension, as lawyer said, diabetes, kidney disease, as a national health emergency so that we comprehensively address it. Policies in terms of education, because we have done it with AIDS, we got some results. Before we left office, we had a lot of the indicators going into the positive direction. The annual deaths related to HIV, transmission from mother to child, all of these were possible because we had a National AIDS Commission, which was in charge in terms of policies. Even now, the antiretroviral drugs are given for free and people are, cancelled. There are a whole lot of things going on when it comes to HIV. That must be the approach given to
kidney disease
and many others.
And we haven't done that.
We haven't done that. Sadly, there are some persons who are in a position to help solve some of these problems who are themselves going through it.
Which is more reason why they should become the voice.
Exactly. And let me commend your the TV3 staff,
yes,
who puts himself up to talk about it. That is how, that's the way to go. It makes all of us conscious of it, because health, you don't know. Yeah. Many of us, we don't even check our kidney function. We don't check what we eat. And by the time that we become conscious of it, we are at a certain stage that we cannot recover and we must go through the process. And so I think that government must take this seriously. What the minister went to Parliament to do will not solve the problem. The problem is that there's an issue of affordability. And then there's an issue of even availability of equipment to be able to deal with it. We must look at it in all. We want to look at it as a national health emergency, so that we deal with access to it, we deal with affordability, we establish a fund that will be able to help those that cannot afford when they go into such situations.
Should we be taxing more? Because if you listen to the CEO of the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Koboy, he says that there are a number of things that we can do. One of them is, he says that we can put some levy referred to as sin tax on some 1 or 2 products which are normally not consumed by the ordinary person, but by people in a particular class. And the inflows on that can go into a fund, not necessarily the national health insurance. Do you agree? I see lawyer shaking his head, but let me find out from you.
See, I agree with the principle. The principle of getting some sustainable funding source for these things. But I don't agree with adding on to the tax. Look, we have the COVID tax. What are we using the COVID tax for? COVID-19.
I'll let you come in shortly, Eric.
COVID-19 and these issues, when it come up, Eric, please, you see, you're a government spokesperson, but there are certain things that when you add a voice, it pricks those who are really in charge of policy to say that let's have a look at it. COVID-19 came in and gave us some $20 billion. What did we use the money for? Can we point to one thing that we use COVID-19 monies that came in because of COVID-19 to do? No. And then we come back to tax the people a levy, COVID-19 levy. What are we using that levy for? Is it not possible to turn that levy into some other thing or some other tax if we are not going to remove it, and then channel it to serve the purpose that Dr. Koboy is talking about?
Okay.
The second issue is that Dr. Koboy should be concerned about the funding sources for the health insurance. And let me be frank, I've heard him talk about releases, lack of adequate
Funding.
release of funding from
Because
the
it's not
Ministry of
directly
Finance.
with them.
Yes.
Yes.
But government must deal with that. If you want to go and add it to the National Health Insurance Fund scheme, then you must increase the funding sources for National Health Insurance. That is what we want to do. If you think that there should be a tax that will specifically deal with this, then let us turn the COVID-19 tax, which we do not know specifically what those monies are being used for, to deal with the problem.
Eric, what do you make of it? Because
No, so I mean, I think that when Dr. Okoboy talks about syntax, we can glean that from other jurisdictions.
Yes.
I mean, so things that cause obesity, addiction, alcoholism, hard drinks, and all of those things are things that alcohol, cigarettes.
Yeah.
These are things that is, in that bracket that is termed as the syntax. Now, so what tends to happen is that if these things that either are remotely related to maybe the cause of kidney failure or other things, right? So you put a certain premium on it so that it becomes a preventive mechanism, and also uses that to do the education and advocacy that Kwame was talking about. So it's tried and tested in other jurisdictions, and so it's not the case that you're talking about something totally different, right?
But if the last budget, government increased taxes on
some of these products.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So I think that he was making a direct reference to how you'll be able to generate those revenues directly for the purposes of health. And for me, I'm an advocate for health and wellness, right? And I like this conversation in terms of what do we do, to even prevent these incommunicable, non-communicable diseases,
yes.
right? So, like diabetes, my father died of diabetes. I struggled for like 10 years before. And these are things that I'm very conscious about, right? And its attendant effects. So I think that these are the things that we need to start thinking about in terms of even the diet and all of this. And so if you're not careful, it can become a political conversation, but the reality on the ground is that it goes beyond that. It has social and even anthropological connotations. Because we are people, we like to do certain things. We think that this is our way of life and culture.
Yeah.
However, it affects certain people. So, and if you do statistically, even in other parts of the world, you realize that there are certain demographic groups that are susceptible to certain diseases, and they do certain things to stem it. So I'm all for having a proper conversation around some of these things in terms of health and wellness and how people, even the consumption of some of these things and all that. So syntax for me is one of the things that we can consider.
What about getting the funds directly to the National Health Insurance Authority? Because Kenya, for example, they are even able to pay for transplant because the monies come to them. So about 90 to 95% of treatments for kidney diseases, they pay directly from their NHIA.
So we are having a conversation around renal diseases and what have you. It's a bigger conversation in terms of health care funding, right? So even the biggest economies in the world if you go to the UK, go to the US, they're always having debates about a whole presidential election was fought on Obamacare and what it is that's supposed to do. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to have a broader conversation in terms of healthcare, funding. But you see, when this conversation starts and people like Broja, who is my very good friend, starts talking about this, I laugh. When we were growing up, there was something called the cash and carry. The cash and carry was a policy of the NDC. Do you know what the cash and carry means?
I remember before the NHIS was
so it means that, and so we've made so much progress. Sometimes it means that if you have a mother, and in the middle of the night, your child was sick, had fever, and you had no money at home, that child might die. And probably you take that child, just paracetamol for that child, the temperature to come down. We've moved away from that. For just a mere card, so that you go to the hospital, they say they're giving you a card before that. You have to pay for that before you get seen. And it takes a government that has the presence of mind and the vision that let's do something called the National Health Insurance. As bad as it may seem, and people would try to discount its importance for political expediency and all of those things. Today, if you have a child that is sick and you take that child to the hospital, at least, even for nothing at all, they will give that child paracetamol.
Even if they are suffering from some disease that doesn't require paracetamol.
No, I'm just saying that.
What's the point then?
Even for nothing at all, they'll give that child paracetamol so that the temperature will come down. I mean, or the fever. All I'm saying is that. So we can take inspiration from some of the things that we have done. Of course, build on it. Make sure that, I mean, if you have a national health insurance like we have, find alternative funding sources, make it stronger, expand the medicines and the treatments and all of those things that people should be able to activate when they are unwell. And also go into the preventive aspect of it. So a certain chunk of our budget, for instance, when it comes to the health budget, should actually go into things like the education and the advocacy of it. We have a system where even in terms of our second cycle and first cycle institutions, this issue to do with PE, physical education and all of those, these are things that we need to go back to so that as we go along, we're not spending too much money when it comes to the curative aspect of it, but we're actually stemming that by preventing these diseases that can be prevented. Okay,
Nia Tukwekwe on Facebook says that, but at least tell us what the COVID-19 levy is being used for. Because you're collecting that, we don't have any updates on it. What is it being used for? How much has accrued?
That question, right, especially when it comes to, with all due respect, when it comes to people like yourself and Broja and everything, it's very difficult to answer.
Why?
Because we have members of parliament. We have members of parliament who approve a budget. Members of parliament, there's an oversight responsibility. We have the Government Assurances Committee. These guys sit on the various committees, right? Now, at every point in time, if there is any need for clarification from any ministry or agency or whatever, they call them to parliament, right? To actually have conversation on specifics. Again, your budget, if you have challenges, once it goes through the Auditor General, it goes through the Public Accounts Committee, and all of those things are done. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you come and ask me that, oh, what are those monies used for? It's almost as if that you're asking me for specifics, but there's a plethora of things that these things went into over the period. Right?
Like what?
And listen, at the point when we're under the COVID, they say we shouldn't talk about it. We had issues with people giving people free water, reducing the tariffs when it came to electricity.
We're going back to that?
No,
we're paying for it.
No, but
so
that's what I'm saying.
I get very agitated when this conversation comes up.
Then you have a
because
situation,
we're paying for it.
No, but you have a situation where for months on end, your economy was in total shutdown. Public sector workers were staying at home, were being paid. All of these things happen within that period. Right, so you can ask those questions. I have no challenge with people or citizens asking questions like that. But I'm saying that specifically to this health issue, right, we definitely have to find, alternative and sustainable ways of funding this, this renal issue. But it's not just that. You know, and sometimes I feel that even when it comes to a political party, you have to be careful not to open a can of worms. Okay, immediately, for example, you make, let's say, renal treatment free. Then there's like 600, 700 different other ailments that you have to make
I don't think they're saying they should make it free necessarily.
Do you understand? Once you deal with that, there's a lot more that you have to deal with. That's why you have to have a broad-based conversation and a comprehensive conversation on how to actually fund healthcare in this country, especially when it comes to terminal diseases and all of those things, so that every year or every few months, we are not going to sit on this platform and now today we are talking about kidney, the next day we are talking about diabetes, the next day we are talking about liver or something else. But we have a comprehensive plan in place and we have a system that makes it affordable and is democratized to the point where people have access to these facilities.
Lawyer, are we at a point as a country where we can actually take up some of these costs on our own?
Eric is passing the buck. He's passing the buck. By now, they should be able to tell us where we are with the COVID funds. Isn't COVID over? Hasn't the World Health Organization declared COVID over? Why are we still paying that tax? Why? What is happening to that tax? Where is that money going to? Have they accounted for it? I hope in the budget coming up, they're going to account for those funds. Look, 4 million Ghana cedis. Is it money? No. In dollars, what? 333,000. You're telling me we've waited since May to get 4 million cedis from the finance ministry? How much was spent on the election, the MPP election? How much was spent? 400 cedis was paid to delegates. Where did that money come from? Where did that money come from? If we were to actually go into asking the questions of, and I was, the vice president is a fine gentleman. And really, I expected him to take a different path and tell his delegates, I'm not ready to pay anybody any money. It's a voluntary organization that you have joined. And this voluntary organization is having...
How did we dovetail this?
Allow him to make his point.
When you were talking, I was quiet.
It's like
I was quiet. No, because we saw it.
Yeah.
Wait, Eric. We saw it on TV. We saw delegates saying X amount of money was paid. And mine is that, where did that money come from? The vice president is a public figure. Where did that money come from? Was it his own private money? Did it come from the party? Did it come from contributions? Where did it come from? And if this was any other country, we would investigate. Look, one of the, I think it was either Obama or Trump's Congress people, he was standing for election. Contributions that came in, he used it to buy material things. He's been jailed for doing that. And we won't question. And the renal unit needs 4 million, it's $333,000 US. And government has waited since May. And the health minister comes into parliament and talks about it as if it's an achievement. The finance minister has given 4 million, and how many people have died? Look, priorities are priorities. You're talking about Bridget was talking about the oil, using the oil money. When you look at the 4 priority areas, health is one of them. Health is one of the 4 priority areas. So we are supposed to spend the oil money on health projects, health situations, things that we need to make sure that the people are healthy. Why didn't we take money from there? So I ask the question, are we that broke that we can't afford 4 million cedis? That it has to go to parliament?
Is that really the case, or is misplaced priorities? Which is which?
But he was called to parliament to clarify certain positions.
Why did we wait? Why did we wait? Eric, why did we wait this long?
But those directives were given before he went to
presidential
parliament.
We're busy doing presidential primaries.
What was your question? Priorities?
Well, I was asking that, is it really about the fact that we're broke, or is misplaced priorities?
It is not important to them. If it were important to them, this thing would have been dealt with ages ago. It would have been in their manifesto. Even if it's not in their manifesto, once it came up in May, quickly you find an answer to it. When we heard that the finance minister wasn't well, was he in Ghana? Was he treated in Ghana? Did he not go outside? Those on dialysis machine and going through dialysis, can they go outside? Can they afford it? And in your own country, your colleague was saying that even some of the machines are broken down. How?
We're told some 45 machines are coming in.
Look, we put governments into place to do what? To serve the people. That is what you're there for. That is your major responsibility. Any little infraction on that service is an indictment on you as a government. It's an indictment. Can you imagine other donors and other people who are listening to Ghana news saying, oh, the government couldn't pay $333,000 to help their renal unit. Isn't that embarrassing? And I believe that it should have been taken seriously. And I hope from this point on, these things will be taken seriously because it's affecting the people.
Well,
simplicity.
Let me quickly deal with the issue of account. Somebody sent a text asking about COVID.
Yes, the COVID levy. In fact, Kwesi AJ also says that in the UK right now, there's a COVID inquiry happening. We're just not serious as a country. Our leaders messed us up, and we're not holding them accountable.
Of course. And you see, the sad aspect is that when you mention accountability, then our brothers are quick to shift responsibility. He's saying that we should go and ask members of parliament what COVID monies are being used for.
No, he says the members of parliament should be the ones to demand it from the health ministry. Is that not what you said?
Citizens must demand for accountability.
Yeah, but
the person who sent the text message is a citizen of Ghana. He pays COVID levy. no member of parliament pays COVID levy on behalf of his constituents. And so they are right when they demand to know specifically what these monies are being used for. The monies you spent on COVID-19, some of the reckless expenditures, the Auditor General came up with a report.
No, but how can you
very bizarre.
Hold on, I'll let you come in.
Very bizarre. Eric, hold on.
Eric, hold on.
And now you're saying that you don't know what was
Eric,
used
hold
for.
on.
I mean, come on.
Hold on.
So one breath, you know what it was
You see,
used for.
when we ask for what
and then next minute,
monies
you don't know
are
what
used for, we want you to pinpoint things that were beneficial. We are not saying that, excuse me to say, you chew the money. We know that you spend the monies, but we want to see specifically things that were beneficial to the citizenry that you use the monies for. These are the questions that people are asking, and they deserve to know answers. You must provide them. The issue about health insurance, every government comes and improve upon it. Jerry Rawlings started a pilot health insurance in some 3 districts. Before President Kufuor came, he also started a mutual fund. You know that before President Kufuor left office, the national health insurance was not a national in character. It was a mutual insurance. Districts were collecting funds and using it in those districts. And so those districts that had more funds could provide for the health insurance mutual fund than underprivileged districts. Until Professor Mills made it a national health insurance and said that, look, let us have the entire country as one, so that when you have the card, you can visit any hospital at any district and have health service.
Yeah.
And so everybody comes and improve upon it. You must do more. You must add on. Instead of adding on, you are taking out. You are capping the National Health Insurance Fund. That is the legacy of President Akufo-Addo. John Mahama is saying that when I get the next opportunity, I want to increase the funding source of the National Health Insurance Fund by taking some monies from our health revenue. That is the way to go. So tell us, the health insurance has been established from the point of piloting to mutual fund to a national character. What are you adding on to it? These are the things that the citizenry want to hear, and direct them as to their choices in terms of which political party must be given the opportunity to govern.
Well, Hassan Sise says that health and education, which do we need to make free? Well, education is also very important, but Al-Hassan Abdul, okay, I'll just leave that. Lawyer.
Quick one. Sampiale reminds me that the Hospital Fees Act was introduced to Ghanaians during the term of when President Akufo-Addo's father was presidential.
Yes.
He was ceremonial president, and Dr. Buzia. That is when it happened. And then he also goes on to ask the question, if this were any other country, wouldn't the Minister of Health resign? Because people have died? The 19 people have died. Who takes that responsibility? If this was the UK, if the America, straight away.
No, but he wouldn't have even lasted in this office because there's so many things that have happened that have required his resignation, and he hasn't made any attempt.
So why? And you see, the major challenge with President Akufo-Addo is that because he tends to favor those who are, I'm looking for the word, who are, what do you call it to him? He uses 2 words. He says, oh, remind me.
I'm not sure I know.
It's not got to do with content. It's got to do with the fact that you are loyal to him. Fine. He's loyal to me. So far as I'm concerned, the man is a loyal man. However, those who are seen as loyal are using it to hamper his presidency. Unfortunately, they hide underneath it and use it to hamper the presidency because they feel that, oh, he's loyal. We are loyal to him, so there's no way he will sack us. In situations like this, the president should call the minister of, Health, and say, oh boy, I can't have people who vote for us die. 19 are dead. Out. Somebody new come in. That will send a signal that people who are given responsibility should sit up. Who is going to take these 19 people who have died, the responsibility? Was it their fault? You waited how many months? May to November to give 4 million cedis. And people are dead and nobody takes responsibility. And we clap for the Minister of Finance because he's giving 4 million cedis to the renal unit. Something has to change somewhere.
Dr. Nosedia, good morning to you. Says that how much is one top-range Land Cruiser? The MPs promised not to buy new cars. Check the growing fleet of luxury vehicles. 4 million Ghana cedis is the problem. How much has been collected via COVID levy and e-levy? How many weeks were we on lockdown? For Eric to say public sector workers were home for months. Only parts of 2 specific regions went on lockdown. Did the government's revenue grow during COVID-19? It actually did. So during this crisis, they insisted on pouring our money into a non-transparent and scandal-ridden personal cathedral project. Does paying 4 million solve the problem? Now, that's not the only problem we're facing in the health sector.